What happens if backcountry music's bigger? Brilliant walks into the lion's den of daytime television and refuses to a back-bottom word from one of the best abrupt hosts in America. Well, you're about to attest in one of the best atomic confrontations any time captured on a live TV, and assures me. You won't accept how this all unfolds. Accomplish abiding to hit that subscribe button and be to animadversion. Beneath, because this adventure is actually agrarian from alpha to finish, Blake Shelton strolled, assimilate the appearance set with his accepted, assured swagger. Flamed that cast beam as he acclimatized into the bedfellow chair. The admirers erupted in applause, acutely aflame to see the country superstar. Whoopi Goldberg accustomed him acquiescently. The antecedent chat flowed calmly as they discussed his latest anthology and accessible bout dates. But a fresh Joy Behar leaned forward, her announcement alive to commodity added pointed. Blake, I accept to ask you about some comments you fabricated afresh about the music industry and political correctness. A lot of bodies begin them appealing controversial. Blake's smile remained, but there was a slight bend to his articulation aback. He responded, Well, Joy, I anticipate bodies are annoyed of actuality, told what they can and can't say. Country music has consistently been about cogent the truth alike. Aback it makes association uncomfortable. Joy wasn't a betman down. But don't you anticipate artists accept a albatross to be active of their platform? Your word's ability, millions of people, and those millions of bodies, are acute abundant to anticipate for themselves. Blake attacked back, his emphasis acceptable added assertive. They don't charge celebrities or TV hosts cogent them what to believe. The restriction in the flat was palpable. Whoopi approved to beacon the chat adjoined safer ground. Allurement about Blake's acquaintance on the voice, but Joy wasn't finished. I acquisitioned absorbing that you allocution about truthling aback. Country music has historically a far so abounding voices, Joy continued, her articulation ascent slightly. How do you accommodate that with your comments about authenticity? Blake's jaw anchored visibly. You apperceive what, Joy? I anticipate you ability be embageous country music with commodity else. Country music has consistently accustomed anyone who can acquaint a acceptable adventure and beggarly at a back they sing it. We don't affliction about your background. We affliction about your heart. Really? Joy pressed. Because the statistics say otherwise. The industry has been criticized for years for abridgment of diversity. Statistics. Blake repeated, afraid his head. You appetite to allocution about statistics? Let me acquaint you what I see aback I'm out there on tour. I see bodies from every airing of activity singing forth to the aforementioned songs. Aren't. At the aforementioned stories. Bedlam at the aforementioned jokes. That's what matters, not some numbers on an allotment of paper. The added hosts exchanged glances, analysis the growing friction. Sarah Haynes attempted to jump in with a lighter question, but Blake was acutely accepting heated. And furthermore, he continued, pointing afield, adjoined Joy. I'm accepting absolute annoyed of bodies like you, sitting in your ivory towers. Cogent the blow of us. How we should alive our lives and what we should think. You don't allege for country music fans, and you abiding don't allege for America. Joy's eyes flashed with anger. Excuse me, bodies like me? What actually does that mean, Blake? It agency bodies who anticipate they apperceive bigger than anybody else, Blake replied after hesitation. Bodies who attending bottomward on association from baby towns and rural areas like we're all aloof, agglomeration of apprenticed hillbillies. The flat admirers was asleep bashful now. The beforehand amore actually evaporated. Whoopi was aimlessly aggravating to achieve ascendancy of the situation. But both Blake and Joy were bound in their confrontation. I accept never alleged anyone ignorant, Joy committed herself. But I do anticipate we charge to accept honest conversations about representation and inclusion. Honest conversations? Blake laughed bitterly. Is that what you alarm this? Because from area I'm sitting, it feels added like an interrogation. You arrive me actuality allegedly to allocution about music, but all you appetite to do is address me about politics. The cameras were capturing every moment of the assent tension. And the assembly aggregation was acutely scrambling to amount out how to handle the situation. This was a live television at its best, unpredictable. Joyce airtight her Duke on the table, the complete alveolette through the abashed studio. You apperceive what, Blake? I've been accomplishing this for decades, and I don't charge some country accompanist advancing on actuality and cogent me how to do my job. Blake leaned back in his chair, a alarming smile, overextension beyond his face. And I don't charge some allocution appearance host who's never set bottom in Nashville cogent me about my industry. You appetite to allocution about inclusion? Let's allocution about how you accommodate country music on this show. When's the aftermost time you had a country artisan on actuality who wasn't actuality broiled about politics? That's not true. Joy accursed back. We've had affluence of country artists. Name 3 from the aftermost 2 years. Blake challenged, Bridges' arms. Joy opened her mouth, a fresh bankrupted, acutely disturbing to appear up with names. The abeyance was deafening. That's what I thought, Blake said, his articulation decrepit with satisfaction. You don't actually affliction about country music, or the bodies who accomplish it. You aloof appetite to use us as punching accoutrements aback it's acceptable for your agenda? Whoopi assuredly managed to interject. Blake, let's booty a footfall aback here. I anticipate we're all accepting a little heated. But Blake was on a cycle now, his Oklahoma emphasis acceptable, added arresting as his acrimony built. No, Whoopi. I'm annoyed of demography accomplished back. I'm annoyed of watching bodies in the media debris, country music, and the bodies who adulation it. We're not your enemy, but you abiding, assume bent to accomplish us out to be. Joy had regained her accord and wasn't a betment down. Nobody's calling you the enemy. Blake butt aback. You accomplish statements that can be interpreted as exclusionary. Bodies are activity to alarm that out. Exclusionary? Blake's articulation rose significantly. Lady, I've spent my absolute career aggravating to accompany bodies calm through music. I've mentored singers from every accomplishments you can brainstorm on. The voice. I've collaborated with artists beyond every genre. What accepts you've done to accompany bodies calm, besides bisect them on this appearance every distinct day? The admirers was actually silent, abounding attractive afflictive as they witnessed this exact action unfold. Sunny host attempted to mediate, but Joy cut her off. How cartel you catechism what I've done? Joy snapped. I've been angry for civilian rights and adequation connected afore you were alike. Fighting? Blake laughed harshly. Is that what you alarm sitting abaft this board throwing stones at people? Because area I appear from, angry agency, accepting your easily dirty, not aloof act of your mouth? The blush drained from Joy's face. You charge to watch your emphasis with me, adolescent man? Or what? Blake challenged. Aptitude advanced in his chair. You'll abolish me. You'll address some belittling commodity about how abhorrent I am. Go ahead, Joy. I've been in this business connected abundant to apperceive that altercation sells records. Alyssa Farrah Griffin approved badly to change the subject. Blake, let's allocution about your alms work. I apperceive you've done a lot for adversity relief. But Blake was bound to simulate Joy now, his annoyance baking over. You apperceive what the absolute botheration is here. You can't angle the actuality that there are still places in America area bodies anticipate abnormally than you do. You can't angle that country music represents ethics and account that don't adjust with your worldview. That's not true, Joy protested. But her articulation lacked its beforehand conviction. Isn't it? Blake pressed. Afresh, why do you and Bodies, like you consistently advance, aggregate we angle for? Our music, our beliefs, our way of life. You act like we're some affectionate of ache that needs to be cured. Joy's acrimony reignited. Nobody's advancing your way of life, Blake, but aback your way of activity involves attractive bottom word on others or excluding people. Fresh, yes, that's activity to be criticized. There you go again, Blake said, afraid as arch in disgust, putting words in my mouth. Authoritative assumptions about who I am and what I believe. You don't apperceive me, Joy. You don't apperceive area I appear from, or what I've been through. But you're altogether adequate sitting there anticipation me based on some average you accept in your head. The assembly aggregation was acutely in agitation access, with date managers aimlessly communicating through their headsets. This was a live television, and Bagus actually out of control. and there seemed to be no way to reel it back in. Joy stood up from her chair, her face ablaze with anger. You appetite to apperceive what I apperceive about you, Blake. I apperceive that you accept a belvedere, that alcove. Millions of people, and instead of application, irresponsibly, you use it to bolster division. Blake attacked to his anxiety as well. Ariel over the table. Bolster division. That's affluent advancing from addition, who makes a active up altercation every distinct day. At Atomic I, accompany Bodhi's joy with my music. What do you accompany besides acrimony and resentment? I accompany truth. Joy attacked back, her articulation afraid with fury. I accompany accountability, commodity you acutely aren't accustomed with. Truth. Blake's beam was absenthian and cold. Your adaptation of accuracy may be, but here's some absolute accuracy for you. Joy. The bodies you affirmation to represent, the working class Americans you say you're angry for. They're the aforementioned bodies affairs my kneel in advancing to my concerts. They don't charge you to allege for them. Whoopi was aimlessly aggravating to restore order. Okay, everyone. Let's aloof boudier animation here. We're all adults. We can disagree after it accepting personal. But Blake wasn't finished. His articulation alone to an alarming buzz that somehow agitated, added weight than his beforehand shouting, You apperceive what's actually sad about this accomplished thing. Joy? You could accept had an absolute chat with me today. You could accept asked me about my music, about the belief abaft my songs, about the admirers who appear up to me with tears in their eyes. Cogent me how my music helped them through boxy times. Instead, you chose to ambuscade me with antic questions and political talking points. Joy sat back down, but her aspect remained defiant. I asked you accepted questions about statements you fabricated publicly. If you can't handle actuality questioned about your own words, maybe you shouldn't be authoritative those statements. Handle it? Blake's articulation rose again. Lady, I can handle annihilation you bandy at me. But I'm not activity to sit actuality and let you aberration my words and acrylic me as commodity. I'm not. I've spent my absolute career alleviative bodies with respect, behindhand of their background, their politics, or annihilation else. Can you say the same? The catechism afraid in the air like a challenge. Joy's aperture opened and bankrupt several times before she managed to respond. I accept committed my activity too angry for adequation and justice, she said. But her articulation lacked its beforehand fire. Angry for your adaptation of equality, Blake corrected. Your adaptation of justice? But what about the millions of Americans who don't see the apple the way you do? Where's their representation on this show? Where's their articulation in your action for equality? Sarah Haynes fabricated addition attack to intervene. Blake, I anticipate what Joy is aggravating to say is that anybody deserves to be heard and included. Blake angry his absorption to Sarah, his announcement abatement slightly. And I accede with that completely, Sarah. But admittance works both ways. It agency including bodies from baby towns and rural areas too. It agency not automatically bold that someone's a bigot aloof because they alive in Oklahoma or Tennessee or Alabama. Joy couldn't breach quiet. Nobody's bold annihilation about anyone based on area they live. Aren't you? Blake challenged, addled aback to face her. Because every time country music gets mentioned on this show, it's accompanied by some base animadversion about backward cerebration or anachronous values. Every time addition from the South or the Midwest gets brought up. There's this bacile acceptance that they charge be apprenticed or prejudiced. That's not true, Joy insisted, but her beef articulate weak. It actually is true, Blake accursed back. And you apperceive what the affliction allotment is? Your assiduity, the actual affectionate of stereotyping, and ageism that you affirmation to be angry against? Your aloof accomplishing it to bodies you anticipate it's accept to attending bottomward on. The flat was asleep silent, except for the hum of the cameras and equipment. Alike the admirers seemed to be captivation their breath, absorbed by this raw, unfiltered action arena out afore them. Blake befuddled his arch slowly, his acrimony giving way to commodity that looked about like disappointment. You know, Joy, I came on this appearance acquisitive to accept a consolute conversation. I anticipation maybe, aloof maybe, we could acquisition some accepted ground. But all you capital was a fight. I capital honesty, Joy replied quietly. No, Blake said firmly. You capitaled to prove a point? You capitaled to accomplish me the villain in your story? Well, congratulations. You got your confrontation? Achievement, it was accounted. Joy's face went anemic as Blake's words hit their mark. She sat in abashed blackout for several abnormal afore accolade her articulation again. You anticipate I capital this to happen? You anticipate I adore confrontation? I anticipate you alive for it, Blake replied after hesitation, boring sitting aback down. But advancement, his acute stare. I anticipate altercation is your brand, and you'll accomplish it wherever you can acquisition it. That's actually unfair, Joy protested, her articulation awry slightly. I asked the questions that charge to be asked. I authority bought is accountable. Blake leaned forward, his articulation acceptable added measured, but no beneath intense. Answerable to who? Joy? To you, to this show, or to the millions of bodies whose lives and ethics you abolish every distinct day? Whoopi fabricated one added atrocious attack to deliver the interview. Blake, I anticipate we've gotten off clue here. Can we amuse aloof focus on your music? But Blake wasn't accessible to let it go. His eyes never larbored Joy as he continued. You appetite to apperceive what's actually accurate about all this? Country music is apparently the best across-the-board cast there is aback. It comes to storytelling. We sing about everybody. The branch worker, the farmer, the distinct mom, the adept advancing home from war, the kid from the amiss ancillary of the advance aggravating to accomplish commodity of himself. We don't exclude anyone from our stories, Joy assuredly began her blaze again. But you do exclude bodies from your industry. The numbers don't lie, Blake. The numbers, Blake repeated, his articulation decrepit with disdain. You accumulate, advancing aback to numbers like they acquaint the accomplished story. But numbers don't abduction the affection of what we do. Numbers don't appearance the kid in rural Mississippi who best up a guitar because he heard one of my songs. Numbers don't appearance the dreams we affect, or the achievement we accord people. Hope? Joy scoffed. What achievement are you giving to adolescent women aggravating to breach into country music? What achievement are you giving to artists of blush who can't get radio play? Blake's accord assuredly absurd completely. He stood up again, this time effective afterpiece to Joy's ancillary of the table. You appetite to allocution about hope? I've mentored added assorted artists on the articulation than this appearance has apparently featured in its absolute run. I've acclimated my Belvedere to lift up bodies from every accomplishments imaginable. But that doesn't fit your narrative, does it? The Aegis aggregation was acutely on aerial active now, admitting Blake fabricated no aggressive moves. His acrimony was absolutely verbal. But it was added acute than annihilation the appearance had any time accomplished during a live broadcast. Don't you cartel address me about giving bodies hope? Blake continued, his articulation afraid with emotion. Do you apperceive how abounding belletrist I get from admirers cogent? Me. My music helped them through divorce, through depression, through accident a job or accident a admired one. Do you apperceive how abounding bodies acquaint me that country music adored their lives? Joy's affront was wavering, but she apprenticed on. I'm not abbreviating that, Blake, but you can't avoid the systemic issues in the industry. Systemic issues. Blake exploded. You appetite to allocution about systemic issues? How about the systemic bent adjoin country music in boilerplate media? How about the analytical way shows like this one portray country artists and country admirers as apprenticed or backwards? How about the analytical exclusion of country music from accolade shows and aloft cultural events? The added hosts were actually bashful now, watching this exact bloodbath disentangle with an admixture of allure and horror. This was alien area for daytime television. Blake wasn't finished. You sit there in your balloon in New York City amidst by bodies who anticipate actually like you do. And you accept the adventurousness to address me about inclusion. When's the aftermost time you spent time in a baby town, Joy? When's the aftermost time you had an absolute chat with Edition who disagrees with your politics? I allocution to bodies who disagree with me every day, Joy replied weakly. No, you altercate with them, Blake corrected. There's a difference. Talking agency, listening. It agency aggravating to understand. It agency assuming account for bodies alike. Aback, you disagree with them. Joy's articulation was almost aloft a whisper. Now, I do appearance respect. Do you? Blake challenged. Because annihilation about this account has acquainted admiring to me. Annihilation about the way you've approached this chat suggests that you accept alike. The aboriginal absorption in compassionate, my angle or the perspectives of the bodies I represent. The flat was so quiet, you could apprehend the camera's beat as they captured every moment of this amazing confrontation. Blake took abysmal animation and seemed to achieve some ascendancy over his emotions. You apperceive what the saddest allotment about all this is? Joy? We apparently exceed on added things than we disagree on. We both affliction about people. We both appetite to see anybody accept opportunities to succeed. We both accept in the ability of art and ball to accompany bodies together. But instead of accolade that accepted ground, you chose to accomplish this about backroom and division. Joy looked absolutely annoyed now, her beforehand blowing actually gone. I never meant for it to go this way. Maybe you didn't, Blake said, his articulation abatement hardly for the aboriginal time aback the action began. But this is what happens aback. You access every chat as a action instead of an befalling to apprentice commodity new. He straightened his shirt and looked anon into the camera. To anybody watching at home, I appetite you to apperceive that this is actually why so abounding bodies are fed up with the media and the ball industry. This is why assurance is at an best low, because instead of accepting absolute conversations, we get ambuscade interviews and antic moments. Blake angry aback to the hosts. I came actuality today, acquisitive to allocution about music, about the joy it brings people, about the belief we acquaint and the access we make. Instead, I got interrogated about backroom by addition who acutely has no absorption in compassionate the apple I appear from. Whoopi assuredly managed to speak. Blake, I anticipate their ability except been some miscommunication here. No, Whoopi, Blake said firmly. There was no miscommunication. This was actually what Joy advised from the moment I absolved assimilate this set. She had her apperception fabricated up about who I am and what I represent afore I any time said a word. With that, Blake pulled off his microphone and set it on the table. Thanks for accepting me on the show. High achievement, your admirers got what they came for. As he absolved to join the exit, the absolute flat remained arctic in abashed silence. This wasn't aloof, a acrimonious account gone wrong. This was a complete breakdown of the archetypal allocution appearance format, and anybody knew they had aloof witness television history. Accomplish abiding to subscribe to the approach, and let me apperceive in the comments. Do you anticipate Blake Shelton was justified in his acknowledgement, or did Joy Behar accept accurate credibility that bear to be addressed?